Professional football in America is a special game, a unique game. Played nowhere else on earth, it is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
I believe it's about character. It's about who you are, what do you stand for, integrity.
The game is about life, and it's about what you have to do to pick yourself up, to make yourself the best you can possibly be.
I got a scholarship to Nebraska. I had a 17-year career with the Vikings.
It is the ups and downs of the game, the turmoil. Those are all parts of life.
It is my duty, I believe, is to get that message out, that you can live with integrity, but you have to have some God in your life to do that.
I've always wanted to be great at everything I've done. I've always been a competitor. I've always showed humility. I'm a team guy.
The values that it teaches you is A, diligence, B, perseverance. There are many more downs than there are ups.
This is such a spectacular game. It's a matter of one's dedication, one's belief in themselves as an individual to achieve greatness.
The game of football has taught me faith, it's taught me commitment, and it's taught me to have a tremendous resolve. And whatever I plan to do, I'm going to get it done.
You never dream, no matter how good you may be, that you'll ever be in the Hall of Fame.
Living with integrity, I certainly, honor the values of the Hall of Fame.
This is an honor bestowed not only on me, but for every teammate that I had. All of these people should be celebrated, not just me. It takes the moment from me to everyone but me.
Honor the heroes of the game.
Preserve its history.
Promote its values.
And celebrate excellence everywhere.
Perhaps no defensive player in history was more feared over the course of his 19-year career than Bruce Smith. The first overall selection in the 1985 NFL Draft, Smith paid immediate dividends for the Bills and was named NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Smith's 200 career sacks are the most in NFL history, and his 13 seasons with 10 or more sacks is also an NFL record.
Montana drops back in the pocket, Bruce is after him, and the ball is intercepted.
In a career recognized for longevity and productivity, Smith was named to the NFL's All-Decade Team for both the 1980s and 1990s.
All right, and with that, we'd like to welcome everyone to Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and thank you for joining us for our latest installment of our Heart of a Hall of Famer series today, obviously featuring Pro Football Hall of Famer in gold jacket, Mr. Bruce Smith. As you saw there in the video, the mission statement of the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values that we promote and we'll be talking about today are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And I'm excited to hear, and hopefully you are excited as well to hear those values have impacted Mr. Smith's career both on and off the football field. And before we kind of get started, I do need to thank a few people. First of all, I'd like to thank our folks at Extreme Networks for all they do for us here at the Hall of Fame and for schools all across our country. We need to thank our teachers and administrators there in Norfolk for opening your schools up, embracing the idea that this message is important for our youth. And lastly, we need to thank our students. I mean, you guys get to ask the questions today. So without you guys, there really is no program, and excited to see what questions you've come up with and kind of how you direct our program today. So lastly, before I turn it over to Mr. Smith for his opening remarks, I do want to share with you a quote that he chose to end his enshrinement speech with here in Canton, Ohio in 2009. And it goes as such. I quote, "If there were anything that I could share or report that I've learned over the course of my career, it would simply be one's value in life is not determined by accolades or worldly success. One's worth as human beings resides in our willingness to gladly extend ourselves in service to our fellow man. It is in this greater spirit of humanity that I shall carry forward." End quote. So with that, truly one of the great players of the game, one of the great men of the game. And if we could all give Mr. Smith a warm welcome, warm round of applause, present to you Pro Football Hall of Famer Gold Jacket, Bruce Smith. All right. And Mr. Smith, the floor is yours for any opening remarks you may want to share with the group today.
Yeah, well, I'll keep them brief, but I just want to thank the Hall of Fame for the opportunity. I want to thank all of the schools that are participating in this program today. One of the reasons I still live in this area, the Hampton Roads area, because I wanted to be a part of the community. I wanted to come back to my high school and other schools and allow these young men and these young women to be able to have a conversation with someone that has reached the pinnacle of his profession. I want them to know that I've walked the same hallways. I've overcome the same challenges and adversities that they've had to overcome. And it's not easy, but have faith in yourself, trust and believe in God. Listen to the people that are around you, your parents, your teachers, your guidance counselors. They want to see you become the best that you can possibly be. For me in my circumstances, it was
teachers and students, that is the bell for lunch, please. Teachers and students, that is the bell for lunch, please.
For me, it was people that particularly in my home, my mother and father, and here at school, seeing more in me than I saw in myself. When I was just satisfied with being average or mediocrity, they wouldn't allow me to stay focused in that. They wanted to see me achieve things that I didn't think I could possibly achieve. So that's the reason I'm here. That's the reason I'm here to tell these stories and to pass on some words of wisdom and understanding. And for those that comprehend, I hope and I trust that this will help to impact your life and head you in a positive direction.
All right, thank you, sir, for that. And before we open up to questions, just one other piece of business to get aside. If anyone's doing any social media today, we ask to use our handle here at the Hall of Fame, which is @ProFootballHOF, and use the hashtag HOF values today. So keep that in mind as you're taking any pictures or anything after the program or taking notes during. Speaking of taking notes, I see some students there at Booker T have some notepads. I highly suggest I have one here. Write down some of the things we talk about today. Take them with you, look back on them, use them as you go through the rest of the day. So with that, we'll start with our first question. We'll go right there to Booker T if we have a student there that kind of wants to kick the program off. Don't be shy now.
Anyone?
When you look back on your life, how do you feel about your choice?
That's a great question. I feel good, but there are some things that I wish that I would change. Making poor decisions when I was at a young age, much like you gentlemen are, around 15, 16, 17, associating with the wrong crowds, going places that I shouldn't have gone. I wish I could take those things back, because once you develop a pattern of habit, it's hard to break. But if you don't start those bad habits or those bad patterns, you don't never have to worry about it. So for me, I look back, and those behavior patterns can follow you for quite a long time. So build that solid foundation. Build that solid foundation right now in having character and integrity. The people that you associate yourself with, you will be identified in such a manner that, okay, well, if you associate yourself with someone that hangs on the street corner, they're going to say, well, you know where to find so-and-so? They'll say, yeah, he's around the corner on the street. If you associate yourself with someone that's making straight A's, well, he's probably in the library studying or doing something productive. Or if you associate with someone that gets into trouble all the time, they're going to associate you with being a troublemaker. So all of these fits like a hand in a glove. And you know, the most important thing about it, you have control of your destiny. No one else does, particularly at the age that you are right now. So prepare yourself for success by the people you associate yourself with, time and effort that you put into your work and your studies, and always, always be productive. Be productive in everything you do and be committed to it. Don't half-step. If you half-step putting something into it, those are results that you're going to get coming back out of it.
Perfect. I think kind of what you're talking about there, Mr. Smith, is the role of almost positive peer pressure. We hear a lot about negative peer pressure and being pressured and doing the wrong things, but that positive peer pressure is important. Was there maybe someone in your life that you looked to or made sure you kind of stayed on that straight and narrow and made those proper choices?
Well, I think the fact that I was involved in so many sports here at Booker T, and obviously my parents played an important role. But my second parents were Cal Davidson and Zeke Avery, my basketball coach and my football coach. They instilled in us what our parents was teaching us at home, to be committed, to be in a constructive and productive environment, which was practicing every day. It kept us off of the streets. It kept us making smart decisions. We were on a team, whereas we had to think of the team first and be unselfish. We couldn't miss practice or be late for meetings and things of that nature. So there are people that are around that you can get advice from, and they won't judge you because you're young, you're still developing as young men. And they want to help you and give you as much knowledge as wisdom as they possibly can to make sure you won't fall into these pits that you have to work twice as hard to get back out of.
Perfect. Let's go for our second question. Let's go out there to Norview. If we have a student there that can ask our next question.
Anybody want to ask? No. Anybody want to ask a question?
Yeah, ask him, what was his backup plan this last week?
Go ahead, you say it.
Oh, I got that.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bruce Smith, what was your backup plan in football to work out for you?
My backup plan? My backup plan would have probably been going into the military, to be quite honest with you. So what my plan was and what Cal Davidson saw in me and Coach Zeke Avery saw in me is I had an opportunity to win a scholarship. To get a scholarship to any one of these major colleges, providing my grades were up to par and the SAT scores were up to par, I would have an opportunity to get an education. And they call it a free education, but there's nothing free in life. You pay for that too. If you're playing sports, you're paying for your education. So that was my plan. And they kind of mapped that plan out for me. And I just followed their lead. And one thing happened after another. I was fortunate enough to be recruited by just about every university around the country and ended up settling and choosing to attend Virginia Tech. And that was probably one of the best decisions that I made.
Perfect. We'll go back there as we're waiting on students there in Lake Taylor to arrive. We'll go back to those students there in front of you, Mr. Smith, for our next question.
How'd you juggle around basketball, football, and wrestling?
Baseball for sure.
Yeah.
Playing four sports in my senior year. It was difficult. It was very difficult. Leaving one sport, going directly to another sport, after that season was over. It was a challenge, particularly so far as my grades were concerned. But again, it kept me in a productive environment. It allowed me to be in a constructive environment, whereas I wasn't hanging out on the corner. I wasn't hanging out with some of my other guys that were friends that were getting in trouble. So for me, it worked. And my advice to any high school student that's playing a sport, play as many sports as you possibly can, as long as it doesn't affect your grades. Allow yourself to experience opportunities and allow yourself to pick and choose what may fit or suit your body or where your talents lie. And this just doesn't apply to sports. It applies to playing a musician, to playing an instrument. It applies to anything you can possibly do that's not necessarily school oriented or in the classroom. But try your hand at a little bit of everything. Don't just limit yourself, because when you limit yourself to one thing, you're limiting your possibilities of becoming great. You don't know what hidden talents that you have inside of you unless you try these new experiences out. So I would advise you to try and dream and think of anything that you could possibly be interested in, and then commit to it and give it a shot.
Yeah. All right, we'll go back out to Norview again for a question from I think it's the football team there in Norview. If we have a question ready there.
The question I wanted to ask was, what made you choose Virginia Tech?
Well, what led me to Virginia Tech? There were a number of different reasons, and most people don't know the story. I signed a letter of intent with North Carolina State, and I mainly did that because that's what my father wanted me to do. That's not necessarily what I wanted to do. And you have to realize this is your life. You have to make decisions when you become a man to do the things that's going to be in the best interest of you and your future. You take your parents' advice, you listen to them, and you use discernment. I repeat, you use the word discernment in when you're making your decisions. And typically, when you follow things in that order, things have a way of working out for themselves. But when I signed that letter of intent with North Carolina State University, I wasn't committed in my heart and my mind that that's where I wanted to be. And I'd always, I'd taken several trips to Virginia Tech, and that's where my heart wanted to be. So at the last minute, I told North Carolina I did not want to attend there. I ended up signing a letter with Virginia Tech. The NCAA got involved, and that's another story. But I found that it was an environment that I felt comfortable with. I was home. I wanted to stay in the state of Virginia. I wanted to make a name for myself in the state of Virginia. And that's where I felt that I was going to live after all was said and done. So that's why I chose Virginia Tech.
As we talk, Mr. Smith, about that transition from high school to college, what were maybe some of the challenges or obstacles that you didn't expect to encounter in that transition, or what advice could you have for our high school students that will be kind of making that transition here in a couple of years?
From high school to college?
Correct.
Well, it's a different atmosphere in that you're going to be on your own. There's a great deal of maturity that takes place from high school to college. You won't be going home in the evenings to your parents. You're going to be going home to your roommate. And if you're playing sports, you're going to be around your teammates. So it's a lot of responsibility. And the foundation that I was talking about earlier, your character and your integrity, that's when that will come into play, when you're on your own. There's going to be all kinds of temptations, people wanting you to do this or to do that. That's where that foundation comes into place. Your character and integrity will save the day if you have that instilled within your heart and you use common sense in your decision-making ability.
All right, we'll go back there to our folks at Booker T with our next question.
How did you separate yourself from the rest of the people that was trying to just right?
That was trying to get my
academically, athletically, any kind of way that you separate yourself from the rest of the people.
Well, you separate yourself by doing the things that they aren't willing to do. Most of the people that I'll just take for instance, when I got to the NFL, being the first player picked in the draft, I was already placed on a certain level of talent, and it was fierce competition. But as I grew a little bit older and I spent 1 or 2 years in the league, I found out the little secrets of this game because I was thirsting for knowledge and I was thirsting to be the best and I was committed. So for me, how I separated myself, because I had the ability and the talent was there. I was 6'3", 265, 270 in high school, and could run with guys that weighed 50 pounds less than I did. But for me, when I was in the pros, I started studying film before anyone ever got to the meetings during the day. So if we had a meeting at 9 o'clock, I would get there at 8 o'clock and I would study film and prepare myself for success. I mentioned that earlier. I prepared myself for success because I did the little things that no one else wanted to do. During my days off, I would go and get a workout in when other guys were laying around playing video games and having a good time. See, I was getting a jump start. I was preparing myself for success because the next day when we had our team meeting, and we had our breakdown meetings, when the coach started putting on film and studying our opponent, I would already have notes written down. This is this guy's weakness. I can exploit that. And see, they weren't prepared. They were doing things as a normal course of business. But I wanted to be prepared a day in advance. And then after the meetings were over and the practices were over, I'd stick around and study more film when other guys were leaving to go home, to get home for various reasons, to do other things or what have you. But see, that was my job, and I wanted to be the best at it. You can't talk the game without putting in the work. And hard work, hard work is not a punishment. It's not a punishment. You get out of it what you put into it. And that's the reason I've got this jacket on and I've got this ring on. I put the hard work in, and those are the rewards for the sacrifices that I've made.
Perfect. Great question. And if I may interject, Mr. Smith, I can tell you're a Buffalo Bill by that answer. We've done a number of programs with some of the great Bills over the years with Thurman and Andre, and one that comes to mind is the coach, Marv Levy, and what he always talked about, it wasn't having the will to win, it was the will to prepare to win, and even that unique preparedness and doing what others won't. So it was just kind of funny listening to that talk and how much that is sounds like Marv in my ear when I've listened to him over the years. So kind of cool to hear that from you as well. So I just wanted to share that. We'll go back out to Norfolk for our next question.
Anybody else got a question?
Ask him, how was it in the NFL? Was it hard?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Was it easy in the NFL?
What?
Oh, my goodness.
All right, the question there, Mr. Smith, I think that we settled on was it easy for you in the NFL? And maybe we talked about a little that transition from high school to college, and maybe a little bit about that transition from college to the NFL as well.
There was nothing easy about the journey of making it to the NFL. And then once you've made it to the NFL, staying there is even harder. There are so many guys that are competing for your job, that are competing for your roster spot, that would cut off their right arm to have an opportunity to be able to provide for their families, to be able to change their lifestyles and future generations' lifestyles. So there was nothing easy about playing in the National Football League. And I know that sometimes when you're watching the games and you see a small number of individuals that dominate while they're out there on the playing field, there's only a handful of those guys that have ever played the game, and some of those guys, or all of those guys, typically wear gold jackets. But let me give you a statistic. Out of the almost 100-year history of the National Football League, less than 1%, and that counts the millions that have tried out, played, cut, waived, or what have you. Less than 1% of them make it to the Hall of Fame. That's an exclusive class. That's a fraternity like no other. You cannot die, you cannot get cut, you cannot get waived or traded out of this fraternity. You will be in it until the end of time.
Very good. Love the answer. And just to give a little more background on that, there's 295 members of the Hall of Fame. Only 260 have actually played the game of football. As Mr. Smith said, the millions that play every year on numerous levels. It is truly the elite, the top level of their craft. One thing we like to say here at the Hall of Fame is that our Gold Jackets, they didn't fall out of bed great. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and hard work over the years that went into that career. It kind of sums up that one statement. They didn't fall out of bed great. And I just love that phrase there. So we'll go back to Norfolk back to Booker T for our next question.
Being that the journey was difficult to get from transitioning from high school to college to the NFL, was there ever a moment in which you wanted to give up or felt like you can't handle it anymore?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. I hope everybody that's tuned in heard that question. I've told this story numerous times, but I remember my sophomore year here at Booker T. It was in the middle of summer, and this was actually in my Hall of Fame speech. It was in the middle of summer. It was about 95 degrees outside, high humidity, playing on the field, practice field out there, and there was more dirt than there was grass. Broken bottles from guys drinking the night before, tossing their balls onto the field. And I went out to practice after my friends talked me into coming out and trying out for the team. I quit after the second day. It was just too hot. It hurt. It was very difficult. When I was running, I felt like I was gonna die. I just a shortage of breath. And I can remember I didn't go to practice the next day. Coach Cal Davidson called my house, and I could hear the phone ring, and my father picked up, and they had a lengthy conversation. And after a few minutes, my father hung the phone up and came in. He's talked to me. He said, "Son, is there something wrong?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, why weren't you at practice today?" I said, "Well, Dad, it's too tough. I can't do it." And I explained to him all the reasons that I just told you, which are no more than excuses. And my father looked at me in the eye and he said, son, I tried to set an example for you. The things I do, the way I work, going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting home at 6 o'clock in the evening, making minimum wage, working for this truck company. He said, son, if you can't handle these challenges that you have right here in life and the opportunity you have in life, you're not going to get very far once you get out of high school. He said, life will pose challenges to you in such a way that you will want to quit. You can't quit. Don't ever quit. Always believe in yourself. Once you start something, you finish it. And with those words, it resonated within me. And I had a new sense of urgency and a new sense of energy and strength. And, you know, here as I look back on it today, you know, my mother and father hated what they did for a living. And I had a chance to do something that I loved and enjoyed doing. How many of you guys would like to play a sport and get paid for it? That's my point exactly. That's my whole point. So if I would have succumbed to my weaknesses and my fears, this story would have never been written. I wouldn't have been sitting here today. So for me, it was certainly a blessing, and it was a defining moment in my life. And you have to recognize those defining moments that are in your life, and you have to act upon them. You have to have courage. You have to have strength. And you have to talk to people that are solely interested in the benefit of your success. And that's what happened to me. And that's why I'm sitting here today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. We actually had a question submitted via Twitter, that hashtag HOF values. It's kind of ties into that defining moment. It asks, could you define the moment when you realized you were going to be a member of the Hall of Fame?
Speechless. I could sit here and then try and talk for the next 10 minutes, and you really don't understand the full magnitude of the moment and the experience until it actually happens and you go through that year-long process. The trip to Hawaii, where they explain to you what is about to take place. The making of the bust, your Hall of Fame bust that's enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. The gold jacket itself, the ring that is presented to you once you're inducted and enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There are so many perks that go along with reaching the pinnacle of your career. It's so surreal, and it becomes full circle. So to quantify it in a sentence or two, it's just impossible to do. It's just this presence that comes over you that you know, you're in the same class of individuals that have walked the halls of the NFL, like Joe Namath and Joe Montana, and obviously Jerry Rice and I were in the same class of the draft class, but we are all considered to be the greatest that have ever played the game.
Thanks. So we'll go back out to Norview for our next question, if we have a student there ready to ask.
What was your favorite team to play against in the NFL?
Favorite team to play against in the NFL? I enjoyed playing against the Miami Dolphins. I have different reasons for saying that. Because Buffalo was so cold, typically we would play Miami during December or November, and it gave us an opportunity to get down to Miami into some warmer weather for a couple of days. So it was somewhat like a vacation, but we knew at the end of that vacation, we had to pay for it by working.
We'll go back out there to Booker T for our next question.
Did you ever take a leadership role while you was at Booker T?
I led by example. I led by the way I work, the way I practice. I took it serious, and that's what other players saw that was in me. And don't get me wrong, I had fun. We laughed, we joked, but as my father used to tell me, there's a time to work and there's a time to play, and you have to have balance in the two, and you have to know the difference between the two. When that bell rings, it's time to go to work. When it rings the second time, you can relax a little bit. So you have to know the difference between the two.
Go back out to Norview again if we have another student with a question ready there.
How did a typical NFL practice go?
A typical NFL practice, obviously it varies from team to team, but I'll give you a work week. Obviously Sundays we play the game. Mondays are half day. You go in, you study film, you go over corrections from the game on the field, the game that took place that Sunday. Tuesdays are our day off. Wednesday and Thursdays are our hardest days of work during the work week. We get in around 8 o'clock. We finish up around, say, 5, and for those who really want to become the best or perfect their craft, they'll get in earlier than 8 o'clock, and they'll leave later than 5 o'clock. But we'll go in, we'll start off with meetings. We'll go out, we'll have a breakdown meeting with your position, your defense or offense, and then another breakdown meeting by position. Then you'll have a walkthrough to go over what they're installing and what they plan on seeing in the next game, plays from they're going to be running the next game. Then you'll have lunch. Then you'll come back and you'll have a meeting. Then you'll have practice. Then, depending on the team, you may study film again, and then you're free to go home. So that's a typical Wednesday and Thursday. And then the Fridays are 3/4 of a day. You'll get in maybe a little bit later, around 9 o'clock, and you're usually done by 2 o'clock. You'll have meetings. You'll have some teams will have a walkthrough, but on Fridays typically they try and keep you off of your feet. So you'll have one practice, and then usually around 2 o'clock you're done. 2:30. They want to get you out of the facility, away from football, so you can clear your mind, stay off of your feet. And then Saturdays, you'll come in at around 10 o'clock. You're only there about an hour or two. You're usually out of the facility by 11:30, 12 o'clock. And you'll have curfew and meetings at the team hotel that night around 8 o'clock. And then curfew is at 11 o'clock.
If you had to give a rough percentage, Mr. Smith, about the percentage of time during that week that's spent in a classroom to the percent that's spent actually on the field, what would you say a rough percentage would be?
Well, I'd say it's probably 65-35 in the classroom, and the rest is on the field.
Yeah. I think it's just kind of always cool to hear that. And a lot of times you think about, being a pro football player, you think you're just playing the game, but a lot of that time is spent preparing, studying, really refining your craft off the field. So our next question will be right there with those students there at Booker T.
So what motivates me now, or what motivated me when I was playing football? Well, there were a number of things that motivated me while I was playing football. One was I wanted to be the best. That was something that just stuck out in my head that I wanted to accomplish, and I wasn't going to let anything deter me from my efforts of wanting to be the best. As I stated before, I was going to put that extra time in to give myself every opportunity of being the best. I wanted to be the greatest sacker that sacked a quarterback that ever lived. Did I ever think that I would reach 200? No, I did not. But along the way, there are individuals that told me I was never going to be the all-time sack leader. And I just used that as motivation to keep me going. I realized that there was a tremendous amount of financial gain that could take place from being the best. See, this is a domino effect here. See, I didn't start off by talking about money. I started off with the fact that I wanted to be the best. When you have the right things in perspective, you start off by wanting to be the best. Everything else falls into place. So it was being the best. I realized once you became the best, you made an argument in your contract negotiations of being paid like the best. So that took place. And then the legacy that I left behind. That's what was extremely important to me. They can't have a conversation in the NFL about quarterback sacks or the greatest defensive player that's ever played the game without mentioning my name. And sometimes they do, but that's okay. But the facts are the facts. I've left a legacy behind for others to follow. And that was extremely important to me. Making sure I was able to take care of my family to the extent that generations before had labored extensively and not had the opportunities that are being presented to them right now. So those are the three factors that came into play.
Staying with the motivation side of things, and we'll transition a little bit from life to the football field. Mr. Smith, you were part of the greatest comeback in NFL history there against the Houston Oilers, a 32-point comeback. Can you take us a little bit inside that locker room and kind of what it took for that team to kind of come together and rally and really overcome that obstacle and that adversity at that point in your career?
So you're focusing on the greatest comeback in NFL history, correct?
Correct.
Well, that was a combination of obviously leadership, Marv Levy, but the assembling of a team of definitely great athletes, but a team of character, a team that overcame adversity, resilient, wanting to put our best foot forward. I don't know if these guys or you guys are familiar with the fact that we were playing in a playoff game and it was against the Houston Oilers, and we were getting beat 35-3 at halftime. 35-3. It's the greatest comeback in playoff history. And half of the stadium, the fans in the stadium, left at halftime, and everyone knew that this was going to be the beginning of the demise of the Buffalo Bills, and we would not make it back to another Super Bowl, and teams would all of a sudden have confidence when they started coming into Buffalo and play against us. But when we went in at halftime, no one pointed the finger. We all looked at each other and said, what can we do to help us win this game? Without yelling and pointing the finger and blaming and saying this and saying that, guys started speaking up. And they started saying, I've got to play better. I've got to do my job. I can't worry about what you do. If I do my job, we've got a better chance of winning. And that attitude just started being contagious throughout the locker room. We went out at halftime. We made some coaching adjustments. They scored only one field goal the rest of the half. Our offensive side of the ball scored touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown in the fourth quarter. Fans were trying to jump the fence to get back in to watch the game because that's how excited it got. And when it was all said and done, we ended up beating the Houston Oilers to go to the Super Bowl. I believe it was to go to the Super Bowl, or it was either to play the Dolphins that next week in the AFC Championship game. We ended up beating the Houston Oilers 41-38. So it was quite a game.
And how many of the students have seen the 30 for 30, the Four Falls of Buffalo? Raise your hand. You
gotta go see. You gotta see.
I highly suggest watching. I think it's on Netflix now. You can pull it up when you guys get home and spend some time and sit down. You actually see some video of those fans trying to jump the gates and get back into that stadium when the Bills started making their comeback. We'll go out to Norview for our next question. If we have a student that's ready there.
Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Smith, I wanted to know what was your motivating factor coming from Norfolk. I noticed that you said that there was a lot of obstacles that we faced coming from here. I want to know when you got to college and the NFL, what kept you going?
Well, I knew there was greatness in my forecast. I just didn't know to what level. And as I stated before, that there were people that saw more in me than I saw in myself. I didn't want to return to hang on the street corners. I didn't want to return to not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but doing what my parents did to survive, to provide for their families. I wanted there to be something different in me and the way I was able to provide for my family and experiences and seeing the world. And this was my opportunity. So I had to capitalize on that. You know, I've had, when I was growing up in Norfolk, I had a couple of friends that were shot execution style. One was on Church Street, and another one was in a housing complex in Norfolk, an apartment complex in Norfolk. And it left a lasting impression on me. One's name was Otis, and another name was, we used to call him Little Dice. And unfortunately, poor decisions and hanging around with the wrong crowds, it left a lasting impression on me and a lot of the guys that grew up with us. So I didn't want to be one of those statistics. I couldn't. It was just something that resonated within me that there is greatness in your forecast. Keep making smart decisions, associating yourself with people of integrity and character, and good things usually happen.
We got about 10 minutes left in our program today, so we'll have maybe another one or two questions from each school. So that being said, we'll go back out to Booker T.
So when I walk around the school, I see pictures of you, your coach, and Cordell Gordon. Who were some of the players that you looked up to when you were walking around here?
When I was walking around, there were a couple of guys that keep in mind, there were guys that were here before me that had just as much talent, if not more talent, than I had. And I would marvel when I would see them on the football field or the basketball court. Billy Walker was one. He was very talented, but unfortunately, he became one of those statistics that slipped through the cracks. There was a guy, a gentleman by the name of, there was Keith Darden, there was Joe Scott. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the name, but Pernell Whitaker, who was the world champion boxer, went to Booker T. Washington High School. Back then, he was the pound for pound best fighter in boxing. And we grew up together in Booker T. Washington High School. So there were a lot of people that had a lot of talent that we could look up to, we could model ourselves after, we could take a note and take a page from their book and kind of apply it to ourselves. So it's important to look around and just don't look around at athletes. Look at the principal, look at the teacher, look at your coaches, look at those, because these are role models. You can learn a lot from them. They don't have to be athletes. See, I tend to look at it, if you're looking for a role model or a hero, don't look at someone that you just see on TV once a week or once every 2 weeks. Look at somebody that can impact your life on a day-to-day basis, that can help shape and mold you and help you build that character and that integrity. And someone that can reproof you and say, look, you can't do that. Now, a wise man will listen. A foolish man will go on about his way and do his own thing. So look at the individuals that are in your life on a day-to-day basis that can impact you, help and shape and mold you. And one last point, you don't have to become an athlete to be successful. There are different areas of success. You can be a successful husband, you can be a successful father, you can be a successful spiritual man. There's so many avenues of being successful. Don't just limit it to, well, if I don't make it in sports, I'm not going to be a success. Be a success in the field that you choose to study in. Nothing prevents any of you guys from getting a scholarship academically. You're in control of that destiny. So keep those thoughts in mind.
Great question. We'll go back out to Norview if we have another student ready out there.
What was your best high school memory playing football?
You know what? We weren't that good in football when I was playing, so I'm not even gonna lie to you. We were probably a game or two over 500, maybe at best. But the majority of my memories come from playing basketball. We were extremely successful. We were state champions. Actually, the year after I left, we were runner-up my senior year. And I'm sure everybody knows in Norfolk, we have a very extensive history of being very successful in basketball over the years. But a lot of my memories come from playing against Maury, playing against Norview and Lake Taylor, and in the Eastern District Championship games. And they were very fulfilling and a lot of memorable moments.
Very good. We have one last question I'll submit here via Twitter, and it's would you trade your Hall of Fame ring for a Super Bowl ring? And I think that one might be too easy for you. So I'm going to modify a little bit. Would you trade your Hall of Fame ring for 4 Super Bowl rings?
Now, if you're talking about 4 Super Bowl rings, I think I might have to take you up on that. But for 1 Super Bowl ring, no. Again, let me explain. If you win the Super Bowl, that means you're the champion for 1 year. If you are inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you are considered the best that's ever played the game. And there are thousands of Super Bowl rings that are floating around. Thousands. There's only 297 of these.
All right. I think we have time for maybe one more question there from Booker T, and we'll have one more from Norview. We'll go out to Booker T right now.
When you're on the court, on the field, and you look your opponent in the eye, what goes through your head?
You know what? That's an excellent question because it leads into what I've been talking about. See, when you are prepared, just like when you're taking a test and you're prepared, you have that look of confidence. You feel like you're going to be successful. You feel like you're going to do extremely well on the test. Well, that's the same look that I have when I used to look into my opponent's eyes, because I prepared for success. I put in the extra work. I got those workouts in. I was in the best shape that I could possibly be in. I got the proper rest. I knew that player better than he knew himself, meaning his weaknesses. Once he got down in his stance, I knew whether it was run or pass. Or sometimes I even knew what play they were getting ready to run by the formation and the down and distance. See, that's when you become a student of the game in my profession. And just like it is when you're studying for an exam, if you put the time and effort in it, and if you study wisely, not just studying to be studying, but study wisely. Have a game plan. See, the quickest way to failure is not having a game plan. So these are the things that you need to focus on. When you prepare yourself and you study, and you put that time in, you're preparing yourself for success.
All right. And the last question of the day will go out to Norview if we have one final student out there.
Go ahead, Philip.
Did you fulfill everything you wanted to do in your football career?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the first part of it.
Did you fulfill everything you wanted to do in your football career?
Well, and that's a great question as well. I would have loved to have won a Super Bowl. We played in 4 straight Super Bowls. That's something that no one in the history of this game has ever done before. And unfortunately, we came up on the short end of the stick. The first one, we lost by 1 point to the Giants by missing a field goal. But I gave myself, or we as a team gave ourselves every opportunity to win a Super Bowl. There are countless number of players that have never had the opportunity or the experience of playing in 1 Super Bowl, let alone 4. So my take on this is it wasn't meant to be, but I prospered so much. I've been blessed so much by having had the opportunities in the way of building relationships, in the way of making business contacts, in the way of doors opening for me that otherwise would not have been open if I hadn't had those experiences. So I wish that we could have won at least one, but it wasn't meant to be. But more importantly, that's not what shapes me. That's not what defines me. My character, my integrity, my work ethic, my commitment to the game and the community, that's what defines me.
And then, Ms. Smith, it's 12:59, so we have about 60 seconds left. So is there any closing remarks that you'd like to either reiterate that we talked about, or maybe something we didn't get to that you were wishing to share with the students today?
I just want to thank the students and the schools for their participation in this program. I hope that something was said here that can encourage, inspire, or make you recommit yourself to becoming the best at what you want to be. Try different things out. Don't think that because you're a guy you can't play an instrument, or you can't go and do something. Maybe it's I forget the name of it right offhand, but it was kind of like a little joke, but try new experiences. You never know what you're going to be good at unless you open your mind and dream and think and think outside of the box. When you start thinking outside of the box, that's when you're really going to accomplish something. And always, no matter what, believe in yourself. You've got a great deal of talent in you. You've got talents and hidden talents that are unseen that you can't even recognize right now. But always believe in yourself. Put your faith and trust in God, and things have a way of working themselves out.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. We can give a warm round of applause and a thank you to Bruce Smith. Perfect. And then hear from all of us at the Hall of Fame. Mr. Smith, we'd like to thank you for your time, taking the time to travel out there to Booker T and share this message. So from David Baker and George Veras and Joe Horgan on down to us here in the youth and education staff, sincerely appreciate your time today, and we'll see you here in Canton soon.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And this will end our session. Thank you.